BBC Southwest.
Now, when it comes to Christmas, obviously everyone's thinking about planning the turkey, planning the goose, the duck, whatever the sort of meat they're having. But I'm guessing wine is a crucial part of that Christmas meal.
I think for many people it is a crucial part, and I think a lot of people, myself included, we would say that come Christmas dinner, whatever, as you say, you're eating, you possibly delve slightly deeper into the cellar, or you go out and buy a bottle or bottles which are just a bit posher than you would normally do. And I think it's a moment to contemplate what you really enjoy about wine, what style of wine you enjoy, and go with something that's familiar, that you trust, rather than striking out in some wildly imaginative direction and buying something which turns out to be a total, if I might use the word, turkey. So, it's somewhat, go with something that is familiar, go with something that you know is going to give you pleasure.
So what's your top tipple this winter?
Well, I'm sitting at the moment in front of 3 red wines from the Loire, and the thing I love about Loire reds is that they have a freshness and drinkability and elegance that is becoming increasingly rare in this modern sun-soaked world, in that they're crunchy, they're bright, they're fruity, and they've got a sort of lightness and elegance about them, which, confronted by endless ranks of reds pushing 15% alcohol, I find is ever more unusual. I mean, looking at one label, I see it's 12.5%. Looking at another one, it's up to 13, and the third is also 13. So it's a level that it's the kind of level of alcohol that wines used to have before they got all hot and bothered, and I love that style of wine.
So what sort of things should people do when it comes to matching their tipple with their food they're having this Christmas?
Well, again, I think you need to choose wines that will be right by flavour and also by weight and intensity, and will correspond to the food that you're eating. Turkey's a very easy bird to match. You can drink lots of different things with turkey, and it's a simple one. And even all those other flavours you throw in, sausages and cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce is a bit difficult, I must say. Bread sauce, sausages, stuffing, no probs. Cranberry sauce does pose problems. But look for the kind of weight that you want. If you want something light and fresh, you can go for something like a Saumur Rouge, an Anjou Rouge. I've got a couple here. Excuse me a moment. Les Nivières, 2010 Waitrose, young, fresh. It's 2010. It costs £7.11 a bottle, so it's not too expensive. The Anjou Rouge is Domaine FL. This is 2006, already, quite a few, 5 years old. Comes from Tesco, and they have it on their list at £19.50. But you're paying for that extra maturity, the complexity that bottle will have gained. And either of those would make lovely sort of openers, starters, with a plate of sort of mixed sliced meat, something like that. Chorizo sausage is another thing which goes really well with the Loire Reds. And then the third bottle I've got is a Saint-Nicolas de Bourgueil, which is always going to be just a little bit weightier, rather in the same way as a wine from Chinon would be. This Saint-Nicolas is called Les Cailloux, 2009 from Nicolas, it's £11.50. A Chinon would have that same level of weight. And if you're looking for something just a bit richer and darker, then I would go for a Saumur Champigny.
Now, I'm teetotal. I've not drunk for about 3 years, but I've got a lot of friends who are from the Mediterranean, and they talk so passionately about wine. Do you think perhaps us Brits are a little bit uncultured when it comes to wine?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, in a funny kind of way, I would say that we Brits are very cultured when it comes to wine, because we're not really wine producers. We've been buying wines from all over the world for centuries. And so we have a much wider knowledge than your Mediterranean friends would have, who are passionately attached to their local wines, and I quite understand why. They are the wines, the product of the countryside where they live, and, the smells evoke the countryside, and that's great. But I would say we're luckier because we have such a wide range of wines to choose from. I mean, if you served one of your friends a bottle of Loire red, she would probably turn his nose up and say, no, this is not my type of wine. I don't like this. But it's because they're not familiar with the style. I think our big advantage is that we're familiar with so many styles because for centuries we've been importing wines from wherever they were made because we didn't do it ourselves.
I think one of the best things that's happening now with obviously the climate that we've got here in the West Country, we're very, very lucky in that respect. But also we've now seen a growing trend of some quite well-established vineyards here, particularly, for example, Camel Valley in Cornwall.
Camel Valley is wonderful. It's terrific. Bob and Sam, they do a wonderful job. I quite agree. I think you're absolutely right. Global warming has helped, and that's for sure. But Bob and Sam Lindo have been making terrific wines almost since they started. I think they're particularly strong on their sparkling wines. We are pretty good on sparkling wines here in the UK. And I always make sure I've got some sparkling English wines in my cellar because I take pleasure in serving them to visiting French people. And I serve them a glass of fizz and say, "You like that?" "Ah, oui, c'est du bon champagne." Actually, it's not champagne at all. It comes from West Sussex or Cornwall or wherever. So, yes, I think we are doing sparkling wine very well. I would say, though, that our climate is still a bit on the cool side, a bit lacking in sun to make really convincing reds. I'm sure lots of English winemakers will be jumping up and down. But I think we can do dry whites. We can certainly do world-class fizz. I think reds we slightly struggle with, and you have to turn again to well-established French regions like the Loire Valley.
Is that the reason why you are particularly fond of that area?
Well, actually, I've got a much more personal connection, to be honest, Jamie. My wife, when she was 14, had a pen friend who came through the school, and they sort of developed a sort of corresponding relationship, and eventually she went, after a couple of years, she went to visit the family, and as an only child, she found herself in a family of 9 children, and she got on with them very well, and for her it was the brothers and sisters she'd never had. So for the rest of her life, she has been passionately attached to their family. It's a funny kind of way, it's her second family. And when I met her, I was introduced to the family as well, and after I discovered that they were prepared to put up with me, I got on with them very well, and they are in the Loire Valley. They live just south of the city of Angers, and they're a delightful family. They don't farm grapevines. They have cows and they have cereals and things, but they love their local wines. And I think that's what's given me this real genuine love for the red wines of the Loire. This real attachment that I've had through this family down in the region.
And one final last question for you. What are you planning to have with your Christmas dinner this year?
I haven't decided yet, Jamie. And that's an absolutely honest, truthful answer. We'll probably have a bottle of fizz or something to start, but with the turkey, not sure.
Fantastic. Lovely job. I'll stop that there. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Charles. Good to speak to you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Take care. Bye-bye.